The humid Alabama air crackled with anticipation. The thick, oppressive heat seemed to amplify the sense of expectancy that hung in the air, as if the very atmosphere was charged with the fervor of the faithful. The Shield of Truth revival tent buzzed with the murmur of hundreds of faithful attendees. They had come from far and wide, drawn by the promise of spiritual renewal and the magnetic presence of Pastor John Walker. This was Pastor John Walker's domain, a place where he felt most alive, his booming voice carrying the word of God to eager ears. His presence commanded attention, his every gesture imbued with a sense of purpose and divine authority. He had built his reputation as a staunch defender of Christianity, a beacon of righteousness in a world seemingly losing its way. His unwavering commitment to his faith had earned him the respect and admiration of his congregation. His sermons, often fiery and impassioned, resonated deeply with his congregation, solidifying their faith and his position as their spiritual leader. Each word he spoke seemed to ignite a spark within them, reaffirming their beliefs and their dedication to the path of righteousness. John Walker had dedicated his life to the church since he was a boy, growing up under the watchful eyes of his devout parents. His childhood was steeped in the teachings of the Bible, and he embraced his faith with a fervor that only grew stronger with time. Sunday school led to Bible study, which led to leading youth groups, and finally to the pulpit of his own church. Each step in his journey was marked by a deepening of his faith and a growing sense of responsibility to guide others on their spiritual paths. He had always been a man of deep conviction, his faith unwavering, his belief in the absolute truth of Christianity unshakable. His dedication to his faith was evident in every aspect of his life, from his personal devotions to his public ministry. He saw the world in black and white, right and wrong, saved and damned. To him, there was a clear line between the righteous and the wicked, and he made it his mission to ensure his congregation stayed on the right side of that line. There was no room for ambiguity in his worldview, no space for doubt. His certainty was a source of strength for his followers, who looked to him for guidance in an increasingly complex and confusing world. His sermons often touched upon the threats to their faith, the insidious creep of secularism, and the dangers posed by other religions. He spoke of a world where traditional values were under siege, and he urged his congregation to stand firm in their beliefs. Islam, in particular, was often painted as a religion of violence and oppression, a stark contrast to the love and forgiveness preached by Jesus Christ. Pastor Walker's words were a call to arms, a rallying cry for his followers to defend their faith against what he saw as a growing threat. His words resonated with a community grappling with the rapidly changing world around them, a world where their values seemed increasingly under attack. They found solace and strength in his unwavering conviction and in the shared belief that they were fighting for a righteous cause. Together, they formed a shield of truth, a united front against the forces they believed were threatening their way of life. In the face of uncertainty and change, their faith and their leader provided a sense of stability and purpose. Pastor John Walker's voice rose in a final, fervent prayer, his words echoing through the tent and into the hearts of his followers. As they bowed their heads in unison, they felt a renewed sense of hope and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the shield of truth firmly in their grasp. Pastor John Walker was a man of unwavering routine. Every morning he would wake before the sun, the smell of strong coffee filling his modest home. He would settle into his favorite armchair, a worn leather testament to countless hours spent in prayer and study. The Bible lay open on his lap, its pages thin and translucent with age, each crease a testament to a lifetime spent seeking guidance from its verses. His faith was his bedrock, his shield against the uncertainties of life. It provided him with a sense of purpose, a clarity of vision that guided his every action. He believed in the power of prayer, in the transformative power of God's love. He saw his role as a shepherd, guiding his flock towards salvation, protecting them from the wolves of doubt and despair that lurked in the shadows. However, beneath the surface of unwavering certainty lay a flicker of something else, a nagging question that whispered in the quiet moments, a seed of doubt sown by the changing world around him. He had always been taught that Christianity was the only true path to salvation, but the world was filled with people of different faiths, people who lived good and meaningful lives. Were they all destined for damnation simply because they didn't share his beliefs? The question lingered, a faint dissonance in the symphony of his faith. The park was John's sanctuary, a haven of peace away from the fervor of the revival tent. He came here to collect his thoughts, to find solace in the rustling leaves and the gentle chirping of birds. It was a place where he could breathe, where the weight of his responsibilities seemed to lift, if only for a little while. He sat on his usual bench, a worn oak beneath the shade of a sprawling magnolia tree, his Bible resting on his lap. He wasn't reading, not really. His mind was awhirl with thoughts of his next sermon, his brow furrowed in concentration. The words of the scripture seemed to blur together as he pondered the message he wanted to convey to his congregation. He noticed a young man sitting on the bench across from him, his gaze fixed on a worn copy of the Quran. He had a neatly trimmed beard and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners as he read. The young man seemed completely absorbed in his reading, a picture of tranquility amidst the bustling world around them. John observed him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. He had always been taught to be wary of other religions, to see them as threats to the purity of his own faith. Yet, there was something about the young man that intrigued him, a sense of calm that seemed to radiate from him. But there was something about the young man's serene demeanor that drew him in, a sense of peace that transcended any religious divide. It was as if the young man carried with him a quiet strength, a deep-seated faith that was unshakable.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
It is. What are you reading?
This is the Quran. It's the holy book of Islam.
John hesitated for a moment, unsure how to proceed. He had never spoken to a Muslim before, let alone engaged in a conversation about their faith. He felt a strange mix of apprehension and a burgeoning curiosity. The teachings he had grown up with had always painted other religions in a certain light, but here was an opportunity to see beyond those teachings.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about it?
Not at all. My name is Ahmad. It's nice to meet you.
John Walker.
And so began a conversation that would challenge John's deeply held beliefs. They talked about their faiths, their traditions, and their personal journeys. John found himself captivated by Ahmad's stories, the way he spoke about his faith with such passion and conviction, and set him on a path of self-discovery he never could have imagined. The more they talked, the more John realized how much they had in common. Despite their different backgrounds and beliefs, there was a shared humanity that connected them. It was a chance encounter that would leave a lasting impact on both their lives, opening their hearts and minds to new possibilities. As they talked, John found himself drawn to Ahmad's gentle demeanor and insightful explanations of his faith. The more they conversed, the more John realized how little he truly knew about Islam. Ahmad spoke of Islam not as a religion of violence and oppression, as John had always believed, but as a religion of peace, compassion, and submission to God. He described the core tenets of his faith, emphasizing the importance of mercy, charity, and the pursuit of justice. He spoke of the Prophet Muhammad with reverence and respect, highlighting his teachings on justice, equality, and the importance of caring for the poor and the oppressed. Ahmad shared stories of the Prophet's kindness and his unwavering commitment to helping those in need. John listened intently, his preconceived notions crumbling with every word. He was struck by the similarities between the teachings of Islam and the values he held dear as a Christian. He had never considered that his understanding of Islam might be flawed, shaped more by prejudice and misinformation than by any real knowledge. The media and societal stereotypes had painted a picture that was far from the truth. He realized that his fear and distrust stemmed from ignorance, from a lack of understanding of a faith that was both familiar and foreign to him. This newfound awareness was both humbling and enlightening.
You know, Ahmad, I've always been taught that Christianity is the only true religion, the only path to salvation. But after talking to you, I'm starting to realize that I don't know as much as I thought I did. Your words have opened my eyes to a broader perspective.
It's easy to judge what we don't understand, Pastor Walker. But the truth is, all religions share a common goal: to connect with the divine, to live a life of meaning and purpose. We all seek to find our place in the universe and to understand our role in the grand scheme of things.
Do you ever doubt? Do you ever question your beliefs and wonder if you're on the right path?
Of course. Doubt is a part of faith. It's in the questioning that we grow, that we deepen our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. Without doubt, there is no room for growth or for the strengthening of our beliefs.
Emboldened by Ahmad's openness, John decided to take a leap of faith. He felt a strong desire to bridge the gap between their communities and to foster a spirit of mutual respect and understanding.
Would you be willing to come to my church sometime and talk to my congregation? I think they could learn a lot from you. Your insights could help dispel many of the misconceptions they hold.
You want me to speak at your church? Are you sure your congregation would be open to hearing from someone of a different faith?
Yes. I believe that dialogue is the key to understanding, to breaking down the walls of fear and prejudice that divide us. It's through open and honest conversations that we can find common ground and build a more inclusive community.
It would be an honor, Pastor Walker. I am grateful for the opportunity to share my faith and to learn from your congregation as well. Together, we can take a step towards a more harmonious.
Pastor Walker had always been a pillar of his community. He was known for his unwavering faith, his compassionate heart, and his dedication to his congregation. Every handshake, every smile, and every word of encouragement he offered was a testament to his commitment to his faith and his people. His church, a beacon of faith and tradition, stood tall in the heart of the town. It was more than just a building. It was a sanctuary, a place where people found solace, hope, and a sense of belonging. The church's steeple reached towards the heavens, symbolizing the community's aspirations and their connection to the divine. Every Sunday, the pews filled with families, seeking solace and guidance. They came with their joys and sorrows, their hopes and fears, looking for answers and comfort in the familiar words of Pastor Walker. The sound of hymns filled the air, creating an atmosphere of reverence and unity. But one Sunday, something extraordinary happened. It was a day that would challenge their beliefs and open their hearts to new perspectives. It was the day of the Interfaith debate, an event that had been the talk of the town for weeks. People were curious, excited, and a bit apprehensive about what was to come. The church buzzed with anticipation. Conversations filled the air as people speculated about the debate. What would be said? How would it be received? The atmosphere was electric, charged with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. This was new. This was different. The congregation was used to the familiar rhythms of their Sunday services, but today promised something out of the ordinary. The guest was Ahmad, a young imam known for his eloquence. He had a reputation for bridging gaps and fostering understanding between different faiths. Ahmad spoke with a gentle conviction, his words resonating in the hallowed hall. He shared stories from his own faith, drawing parallels and highlighting the commonalities that often go unnoticed. He spoke of God's mercy, the importance of compassion, the universality of faith. His message was one of unity, love, and mutual respect. The congregation listened, some nodding in agreement, others deep in thought. His words, though different in context, echoed the very values Pastor Walker had preached for years. Pastor Walker listened intently, his mind racing with thoughts and reflections. He realized that despite their different backgrounds, they shared a common goal: to bring people closer to God and to each other. The familiar scriptures, the comforting rituals, they suddenly seemed distant. Pastor Walker felt a shift within himself, a realization that faith was not confined to the walls of his church or the pages of his Bible. He felt an unfamiliar stirring in his heart. Was this doubt, curiosity, a desire to learn more about the world beyond his own beliefs? He couldn't tell, but he knew he needed to understand more. This was a moment of transformation, a call to broaden his horizons. He couldn't tell, but he knew he needed to understand more. He spent hours in his study, poring over religious texts, seeking wisdom and insight. He reached out to colleagues, friends, and even Ahmad, hoping to engage in meaningful conversations that would help him navigate this new path. As Ahmad finished his address, a wave of murmurs swept through the church. People exchanged glances, whispered to one another, and pondered the words they had just heard. It was clear that Ahmad's message had left a profound impact. This wasn't the usual Sunday service. It was a moment of awakening, a challenge to their preconceived notions, and a call to embrace a broader understanding of faith. It was a jolt to their understanding, a crack in the familiar narrative. The stained glass windows, once symbols of their unwavering faith, now seemed to reflect the complexity and diversity of the world outside. And for Pastor Walker, it was the beginning of an unexpected journey, a journey of exploration, learning, and growth. He knew that his faith would be tested, but he also believed that it would emerge stronger, enriched by the new perspectives he had encountered. This interfaith debate had indeed shaken his world, but it had also opened his heart to the boundless possibilities of understanding and unity. The debate concluded, leaving a lingering sense of wonder. The room was filled with a palpable energy, a mix of curiosity and contemplation. The congregation members, who had gathered to discuss and understand, were left with more questions than answers. Many in the congregation felt drawn to Ahmad. His presence was calming, his demeanor inviting. He seemed to possess a depth of knowledge and a serenity that was hard to ignore. They approached him hesitantly at first, then with a growing eagerness. It was as if they were drawn by an invisible force, a need to understand and connect. They asked about Islam, its tenets, its practices. They wanted to know about the daily rituals, the prayers, the fasting. They were curious about the beliefs that guided Ahmad's life. Ahmad, with his calm demeanor and insightful explanations, patiently addressed their queries. He spoke of the 5 pillars of Islam, the importance of charity, the significance of Ramadan. He explained the concept of Tawheed, the oneness of God, and the role of prophets in Islam. Word spread about these informal gatherings. More and more people began to attend, drawn by the promise of understanding and the chance to engage in meaningful dialogue. Pastor Walker noticed a shift in his congregation. He saw the growing interest, the increasing attendance at these gatherings. He observed the way his flock was drawn to Ahmad's words. There were hushed conversations after service, stolen glances, a sense of unease mixed with intrigue. The congregation was abuzz with discussions, their minds filled with new ideas and perspectives. They were hungry for knowledge, grappling with newfound perspectives. They read books, watched videos, and engaged in discussions, trying to make sense of the new information they were absorbing. Even those who disagreed with Ahmad found themselves captivated by his sincerity. His genuine approach, his willingness to listen and engage, made it hard to dismiss his words. He didn't preach or condemn. He simply shared his truth, inviting them to listen with open hearts. He spoke of his own journey, his struggles, and his faith. He simply shared his truth, inviting them to listen with open hearts. And in that openness, a seed of understanding was sown. People began to see beyond their preconceived notions, to understand a different perspective. And in that openness, a seed of understanding was sown. Faces that were once skeptical began to show signs of realization. Minds that were once closed began to open. Pastor Walker observed all this with a mixture of apprehension and fascination. He saw the changes in his congregation, the questions it raised, the walls it chipped away. He saw the impact Ahmad's words had on his flock, the questions it raised, the walls it chipped away. He saw the curiosity in their eyes, the eagerness to learn and understand. And he knew deep down that he wasn't immune to this newfound curiosity himself. He found himself pondering the same questions, feeling the same pull towards understanding. The journey of discovery had begun, not just for his congregation, but for him as well. The encounter with Ahmad left an indelible mark on Pastor Walker. He found himself revisiting the familiar scriptures, this time with a fresh perspective. He delved into Islamic texts, comparing, contrasting, seeking answers. He spent hours in quiet contemplation, his Bible alongside the Quran. He sought out scholars from both faiths, engaging in thoughtful dialogues. He attended mosque services, observing the rituals, feeling the sense of community. Each interaction chipped away at his preconceived notions, revealing the common thread that bound these seemingly disparate faiths. The more he learned, the more he realized how much he didn't know. The world expanded beyond the confines of his church, his beliefs evolving, his faith deepening. He grappled with his changing understanding, the fear of the unknown battling with the exhilaration of discovery. Pastor Walker's journey wasn't about abandoning one faith for another. It was about seeking truth, wherever it might lead. It was about recognizing the inherent beauty in different paths, all leading to the same divine light. Sleep became elusive for Pastor Walker. Night after night, he found himself staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts that refused to be silenced. The darkness of the room seemed to mirror the uncertainty that had taken root in his heart. Doubts swirled in his mind like a storm, relentless and unyielding. Each question led to another, creating a cascade of uncertainty that left him feeling more lost than ever before. The tenets of his faith, once unwavering pillars, now seemed to sway under the weight of his newfound knowledge. The scriptures he had preached with conviction now felt like riddles, their meanings elusive and ever-changing. He felt adrift, caught between the familiar shores of his past and the uncharted waters of the unknown. The path he had walked for so long now seemed fraught with uncertainty, each step more precarious than the last. Was he betraying his beliefs? The question gnawed at him, a constant reminder of the inner turmoil he faced. The symbols of his faith, once sources of comfort, now seemed to challenge him, demanding answers he wasn't sure he could provide. His congregation? Himself? The weight of their expectations pressed down on him, making each sermon a test of his resolve. He wondered if they could sense his inner conflict, if they could see the cracks forming in the foundation of his faith. The very foundation of his life seemed to crumble around him. The certainty that had once defined his existence was now a distant memory, replaced by a sense of disorientation that left him questioning everything he had ever known. The guilt was heavy, the fear debilitating. He felt as though he was betraying not just his faith, but his very identity. The man he had been was slipping away, replaced by someone he barely recognized. He confided in no one, afraid of the judgment, the disappointment, the inevitable chaos. The fear of being ostracized, of losing the community he had dedicated his life to, kept him silent, his struggles hidden behind a facade of normalcy. Yet amidst the turmoil, a sense of clarity began to emerge. In the quiet moments of reflection, he found a glimmer of hope, a sense that perhaps this journey of doubt and questioning was leading him to a deeper understanding. The love, the compassion, the emphasis on social justice that drew him to Christianity resonated deeply with the teachings of Islam. He began to see the common threads that wove through different faiths, the shared values that transcended religious boundaries. He realized that his faith wasn't defined by rituals or dogma, but by the core values of love, mercy, and submission to a higher power. The texts he studied, whether from the Bible or the Quran, spoke to the same fundamental truths that had always guided him. His journey was his own. It was a path that no one else could walk for him, a personal quest for understanding that required him to confront his deepest fears and doubts. His truth, unique and evolving. He came to understand that faith was not a static destination, but a continuous journey of exploration, questioning, and ultimately, surrender. Each step brought new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities for growth. He understood that faith was not a static destination, but a continuous journey of exploration, questioning, and ultimately, surrender. The conversations he had with people of different faiths enriched his understanding, showing him that there was more that united them than divided them, and he knew he could no longer deny the path unfolding before him. The journey was far from over, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a conviction that he was on the right path, even if it was one